questions about the Israeli-Hamas war that's going on. But recently, there was an event that captured the attention of the whole world, and that's the Oakland City Council resolution of condemning Israel. I'm just going to let you judge for yourself what you think about this. Let's just see if we can watch a few clips from that event.
There's not been beheadings of babies and rapings. Israel murdered their own people on October 7th.
Calling Hamas a terrorist organization is ridiculous, racist, and plays into genocidal propaganda that is flooding our media and that we should be doing everything possible to combat.
I support the right of Palestinians to resist occupation, including through Hamas, the armed wing of the unified Palestinian resistance.
As an Arab, asking with this context to condemn Hamas is very anti-Arab racist.
The notion that this was a massacre of Jews is a fabricated narrative. Many of those killed on October 7th,
Thank you, ma'am. Your time is up.
Including children, were killed by the IDF. An amendment condemning Hamas is bald propaganda meant to...
Thank you. Your time is up.
Question. Did anyone else notice that those who oppose this resolution are old white supremacists?
There's been a lot of atrocity propaganda ranging from claims of beheaded babies to mass rape.
Hamas is not a terrorist organization just because the U.S. and Israel deems it so. Hamas is a resistance organization that is fighting for the liberation of Palestinian people and their land.
And just because you don a scarf doesn't mean that you're going to be speaking much sense. And you talk about some bald propaganda. When you think about it, that in that brief clip that we just saw of those folks at the Oakland City Council meeting, is that there was just a lot of buzzwords that were used to help get their point across. I am just at the place in my life where I'm not interested in the rhetoric, but instead I would like to be able to think through some of these issues for myself and untangle some of the comments that are swirling around it. I've been watching some YouTube videos going on, and I've been seeing a lot of different broadcasts about this. And it's just, I really believe that this is a momentous issue that speaks to the condition of our cultures. I see this much more than just a clash between Israel and Hamas, but I really do see this as a clash of civilization with a lot of philosophical implications to it. And so that's what I wanted to think about. Now, I have some questions myself, and I'm just going to walk through some of these really quickly about the various questions that I have. That's not my first question. That's what I get for doing some of this live, is trying to sort out these things a piece at a time. So here we go with my first question. And that when I'm thinking about these issues, that I'm wondering about, for instance, the culpability. That who's culpable for October 7th? When we were looking at that parade of folks at the Oakland City Council, that they said it was just a propaganda, where the fault for this is that we're laying it at the feet of Hamas. And so I think that it's fair for us to ask the question, is it true that Hamas is responsible for the atrocities that were committed on October 7th? Beyond that, I think that we have the question of the hostages. I don't know about you, but it just sickened me to see so many people tearing down the posters of the hostages and thinking that somehow they were serving a just and noble cause in doing that. But that really raises a broader question with respect to the hostages, is that is there a moral equivalence between the hostages taken by Hamas and the administrative detainees or prisoners that are held by Israel? I think that's worth looking into, and I think it's worth thinking about. And so that's one of the questions that I have about this whole issue. As I go on and think through some of this, is that I'm wondering about the question of self-defense. Is that was Israel's response legitimately self-defense? The larger question probably is it just for a sovereign nation to retaliate when hostile actors attack it? Now, obviously, that's tied to the other question of whether or not Israel, and the civilians of Israel were attacked by Hamas on October 7th, and are they culpable for that attack? And so I think that, but if they were, then we have to ask ourselves: is it just for a sovereign nation like Israel to retaliate when hostile actors attack it? Like I said, I think these questions are important to consider and to work through. And instead of being just swept away by the tide of public opinion or marching in some protest against Israel or whatever, is that it might be good for us to think through some of these things. So how about the question of proportionality with respect to Israel's response? Are Israel's punishing attacks against Gaza too heavy-handed? Now, I have some strong opinions about this whole conflict between Israel and Hamas. And so, and obviously I'm not going to be shielding those as we go along. I'm just kind of framing some of the questions that I'm thinking about at this time. But I have to admit that when I saw some of the devastation that Israel has wreaked against the Gaza Strip, and the toll of human suffering that has been brought about through that war, is that I had to think through was whether or not my position is really the correct position or a just position to hold. So, and hopefully in that maybe we can provoke some of your thinking along these lines as we walk through these particular points. As we go on and think about this, is that what is Israel's goal for Hamas's future? And is it unconditional surrender or total destruction or something else? And if that's the case, is it just for Israel to seek the total destruction of Hamas, or its unconditional surrender, or whatever? And here again, I think that we need to think through these things. And particularly we think through them within the framework of justice and what's morally right in these types of situations. Another question that I have is the question of Hamas's goal with respect to Israel's future. So what is Hamas seeking? I mean, really, what are they seeking? And is this truly and you hear this all the time, is that this is, a land dispute or a resistance against colonizers? And that is particularly the narrative that's pushed by progressives in the West. And I think that plays into some of the motivations that Hamas has. And I think that it naively plays into some of those motivations. And so we have to ask ourselves, what is it that Hamas is truly seeking in this conflict? Is it a land dispute, or is it just resistance against colonizers? That's how it's been framed by a lot of people here in the West, and I think that that's worth examining. And here, coming back to one of the slides that I had earlier up, and that this is where I want to wrap this up, is what about war crimes? And with respect to Israel's response, to war crimes, or has Hamas committed war crimes? Who decides what's a war crime? And what is their authority to make that determination? I think this opens up a wide variety of interesting philosophical questions that I hope to explore. And so I think that there's questions about this conflict that need answers, and I would hope that we'll be able to explore these together. Now, I've reached out to some of my colleagues and have invited them to join me in a discussion about this, and we'll see how we can work out all of the details, because they live busy lives. But if not, I'm going to do my best to explore these questions and hopefully provoke some thinking on your part too. And I'd be interested in hearing your responses along the line. And it doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to agree, but it does mean that I'm interested in what you have to say. So that's it for now. And I hope that we will be able to walk through these questions together here shortly in the future. So I'll see you later. Bye-bye.